Hi, my name is Claire Vanamuli. I am the Content Marketing Manager at Bizagi. So here at Bizagi, we've been talking about the concept of innovation velocity. And this is basically the notion that when you're deploying a new tech program or initiative, it's important to do it with both speed and direction. It's all very well being agile and getting things up and running quickly, but there needs to be a strategy behind it as well for both the business and IT. So Bizagi customer TransAlta have been doing just that. I'm delighted to be joined today by Robin Wiley, who's going to share more of TransAlta's journey with us. So Robin, over to you.
Thanks, Claire. As you mentioned, my name is Robin Wiley. I'm the head of process automation here at TransAlta. We do both robotic process automation and now our BPMS system, Bizagi, as well. We've been running with robotic process automation now for a number of years, and we decided to expand it into a BPMS system as well. And so we've obviously picked Bizagi as part of that. The team itself is part of a larger group within IT called Data and Innovation, and our team focuses specifically on modern application development, data and analytics, as well as process automation. And so it's a broad-based team looking at sort of modern technologies. TransAlta itself, we're an independent power producer based in Calgary, Canada. We are about just over 100 years old at this time. Actually, our first power plant was built about 100 years ago, just west of the city. It's a small hydro dam on the river flowing into Calgary. And really at that point in time when it was built, it was still sort of, mostly shovels and, horses and wheelbarrows it was mostly made for. And the thing's still running, 100 plus years later. I've actually gone out and seen it a couple of times. We have about 75 plants right now spread across Canada, the United States, and Australia. We do both gas and wind, solar and hydro and coal. But unlike a lot of companies, a lot of utilities that you might know, we actually don't sell to households at all. We sell to large industrial customers and just sort of into the market. And so we're really a pure B2B customer or company rather than a B2C one, which is different from most of the power companies that most people are familiar with.
Thanks for that background. I'm now imagining lots of horses carrying around carts to power up your wind turbines.
Well, I don't think we're using those anymore, but yeah, I know you can see the pictures of, it's just old black and white pictures of manual labor.
Well, hopefully now you've progressed a bit more from that. And
just a bit.
It sounds like since you've deployed Bizagi and started some process automation projects that you've had some really interesting things going on. So let's just go back to the beginning. Tell us about why you purchased Bizagi and what were the main pain points that you were trying to solve?
Well, as I mentioned, sort of the group that I'm in, we've been doing process automation now for about four and a half years. And obviously, RPA has a lot of benefits, as we all know at this point in time. It's really good at some things, but the orchestration or the workflow is definitely one of its weak points. And so we knew we needed to expand the offering so we could serve our customers within the company more effectively. And so we began looking into sort of, what other options were out there. And so we decided that we wanted to focus on a BPMS system. And so, of course, we went through our sourcing event and looked at various sort of providers of the software. And we really felt that Bizagi was the company that sort of best fit our needs. It allowed us to expand rapidly within the business, sort of across the broad base of the business with a lower investment and sort of something in the way that we could kind of grow it. We worked with you guys through this, and you actually developed for us a very quick prototype. We had sort of a business problem that we wanted to sort of see if you guys would be able to solve for us in sort of a rapid way. And I think it was you guys did a quick proof of concept for us from the whole requirements gathering all the way into sort of delivering us sort of a product that we could sort of look at and test and use. And it was about 2 to 3 weeks, I think, was that sort of thing. And it really kind of showed us how quickly we could actually sort of build something within the system. At that point, once we signed up with you, actually, we decided we needed a sort of a large scale project internally that would demonstrate sort of the power of the software for the rest of the business. And we needed something that sort of, was large enough to really kind of make an impact. And at that point, we decided we actually wanted to replace our sourcing system. We had a previous legacy system that wasn't really meeting our needs anymore. It was overly complex for what we had, and it wasn't fully integrated into our various systems. And so we decided sort of to do that. As part of that, because of the company we are, most of the vendors that we deal with in the company always mostly come through our sourcing. And we had a separate vendor management system as well, which actually didn't integrate with our sourcing system. And so it caused us to have, a lot of double, triple entry of some of this data between all these systems, which, resulted in sort of the issues that happen when you have that sort of entry. And so we really looked for a project that would sort of simplify our landscape and simplify the processes that we had within the company around our sourcing system.
That's great. So your SCM sourcing, that's essentially like a procurement portal where you centralize all your vendor information?
It does at this now, I guess it does everything. So it does centralizes our vendor information, but we also can run all of our sourcing events out of it as well, whether that's, RFQs, RFPs, single sourcing, and all of that is now coming out of a single system.
That's great. And it sounds like you had a very quick turnaround. So why was the speed of deployment so important for this project?
Well, I'd say that I'd say we'd had two primary reasons for a quick turnaround, or for why we wanted to sort of move forward with this so quickly. One was we did have some internal deadlines that we needed to meet with sort of the system, but the other one was just, we've all been in sort of some of those projects or some of those sort of systems where things, the project seems to go on for an indeterminate amount of time. It doesn't really, it takes a long time. There's constant sort of changes, and the projects always take longer. And so we really wanted to prove out our ability with the system, and our ability sort of internally and as well with you, to rapidly turn around a product that the business can use. Because of course, the longer it takes to get your product out, the longer it takes to start getting the benefit from the product, right? So you don't want to push that out. You want to sort of put your costs and your benefits as close together as possible. And so we really worked through that with the rapid prototyping that we were able to do in the system with you. We were able to consistently sort of modify and show with the business what the product would do, and sort of being able to change what we were working on within the system with everybody sort of involved in the product. It was most, of course, because Bizagi was a new system to us, it was most of the business users' first exposures to a system like this, where you can sort of modify the system quickly, where you can make your changes very rapidly through the system. And so it was a lot about trying to get the business used to this idea of rapid prototyping, to get them to understand that, it's not just all about gathering, that old waterfall method, right? Where you gather all the requirements at the beginning, and then at the end, oh, here's your product. Is this good enough for you? And so we could, as you said, work agile and sort of get through the product, and sort of with the minimum sort of requirements at the very beginning of this. That was, yeah, one of the great benefits of it, was just having the business involved and having the business showing that they understood that they could make changes.
Yeah, I guess those sort of small incremental changes as you go can really benefit the business overall.
Yeah, especially when we've all sort of seen this. We have legacy processes that have been happening for a while, and sometimes there's some round pegs and square holes. And so, when you can actually sort of modify your processes as you're going, or realize, okay, maybe we can actually do this process in a better way. We don't need to, in these situations, we don't need to do this step, even if we were forced to in the old system.
Sure. So given all that, tell us a bit more about your strategy. What was TransAlta's approach to this project?
Well, the approach I try to take in most of the projects I work with around the process automation is very much a business sort of first approach, looking at what those business requirements are and trying to meld IT's work around that as best as possible. Really starting with the end in mind. What does the business really want and need out of the system that we're building, and drive from there. The other thing that we really wanted to focus on was ease of use. For one, just because, again, the system was new internally, and we wanted to make sure that the business could use it well. But as well, for something like our sourcing system, we have a number of people that come into the system, and they have to approve a contract once a year, or they have to get their copier repaired, and so they have to set up a new vendor, but they only do this, almost never. And so that had to be a system that was built to enable them to easily go in and do this, right? We could had to make sure that it wasn't complicated and was, easy for them to understand and push through. We also had to really make sure that everyone was on the same page internally, whether that was our business users, our IT group, as well as Bizagi. And part of that is just simply as I mentioned, we're quite geographically spread. And so because we have people in, multiple jurisdictions, all of which can have their own processes, their own legal requirements, we really had to make sure that we were focused on sort of what all the groups needed together and not sort of as separate segmented groups. And so we really worked hard through the project to keep that communication and those linkages strong.
Sure, taking that holistic approach.
Yes.
And I'm sure that as well as working across all these different regions, which you're used to doing as a global business, it was probably made even harder by the fact that this was all done in the middle of a global pandemic. So you were all having to work remotely. Did that affect the way that you worked?
Well, I think of course, really, COVID definitely affects the way we all work, right? And that's sort of, we're in month 18, 19, or whatever it might be at this point in time. It's the topic of the day. The But yeah, of course, it really did sort of affect how we worked. As you mentioned, we're geographically spread. We cross 16 time zones. And so ultimately, even without COVID, we would have had to do some of the things we did. We would have had to do the video chats, and we would have had to do those things. We can't necessarily fly people sort of all across the globe for a project. But during COVID, obviously video chats and screen sharing were vital for this to work well at all. I really, I can't imagine what this would have been like 5, 10 years ago and how we sort of would have gotten through projects like this at that point in time. And, of course, at times it would have been helpful to have people in the office or have everybody sort of in a single room together to sort of work through something. But you work with what you have in the situation you're in. And I think overall, I think it was still a very successful project given all of that. We made sure that everybody was always sort of in the same virtual room, if you will, as we're working through it and keeping that constant feedback going between everybody. And that was between, say, our business, our IT group, and you guys, and sort of our financial systems team and our SOX team, and all of those sort of different stakeholders that would be involved in this. We, made sure that they were involved early in the project and throughout the project, and keeping that line of communication with everybody open through the whole project. And we really tried to make sure that we tried to make sure we empowered people as much as possible to bring up their ideas and their needs. I definitely know that when you're dealing with things like, when you're talking through Zoom or Teams or whatnot, it's really easy for people to, sit back, or it can be hard to sort of, bring yourself forward sometimes. Just the social cues are harder to do. But we really, really tried to make sure that people knew that they could speak up and knew that they could offer those suggestions to the tool. And I really think that once, as we were working through the project, it really showed them that they could, and that their suggestions and that their ideas could be, implemented and looked at really quickly. So
Well, it sounds like quite the challenge, but I think you made it work.
I think so.
And I hear from my customer success team that you have a second project that you worked on internally as well.
Yeah. So as part of bringing in Bizagi, we wanted to make sure that we knew internally that we could also build things in it and that we could sort of create products in it. And so we looked for another smaller project internally that we could work on internally without Bizagi support. And we found one. Actually, it was one of our above and beyond awards that our HR department ran. It had started up the previous year, and it was actually done at that point in time through spreadsheets and emails. And you can imagine sort of how complicated that can get, trying to sort of get all this information back and forth between the company and sort of shuttling it around. And the program was expanding. And so we needed a system that would allow us to, expand the program and sort of, codify it and make it sort of an easier system for everybody to run. And so we brought in our own developer for this, and we ran our own agile project. And we actually turned around from the requirements gathering all the way to the product delivery in about a month. And so We had a couple of business users, and we had our developer and myself working through the project. One of the business users actually took your training on the guys' portable and started actually helping out through the project and doing some of the small tasks within it, especially around the forms and whatnot. And it really helped show us that, we could start bringing in some of these citizen developers in that could help us out with the products, and that we could, again, internally turn around a project that delivered the business value right away. We're actually already on version 1.1, and I actually had an enhancement meeting with the business earlier this week where they want some more changes coming in because, again, they know that they can get it. So they're definitely very pleased with the product.
That's great. That's another excellent example of marrying speed with a strategy, by bringing in those citizen developers who can get to grips with Bizagi and other software quite quickly. They
Yep.
can help you roll out a solution faster.
Yeah, and then continue to make some of those small changes that they need.
Exactly. So what advice would you give to anyone who's embarking on their own journey, or indeed in the middle of their own automation project? Have you got any words of wisdom?
I don't know about wisdom, but I would definitely say really the most important thing, especially right now during COVID and the distance sort of work that we often do right now, is just keeping the proper cadence and communication going during your project. During your projects, making sure that you're constantly talking to the business and to portions of IT and to whoever else your stakeholders are. Even if there's nothing going on at that point in time, there might be next week, and making sure that everybody's always up to speed about where you're at is absolutely just vital. It allows you to sort of keep everybody up to date and allows issues then to be dealt with way much quicker. As well, just make sure that you empower sort of the business users to ask their questions and to make their suggestions, make sure that they know that they're valued, and make sure that they know that their contributions can make a difference in the project.
That's very sound advice. And what's next for you and your team? What other projects have you got planned?
We actually have quite an interesting one happening right now. We're actually just sort of starting it up. It's, as I mentioned before, my broader team works on modern application development, data analytics, as well as process automation. So we're working on integrating Bizagi with our MDA, or modern data architecture. So we're using Databricks as an ingestion method to gather some of the data for some of the ways some of our plants are working. And it's sort of ingesting the data, doing a whole bunch of calculations on that data, and then Bizagi is pulling in that data to look for when there's issues that are happening with some of the data and some of the things that are happening within the plants. And then it's orchestrating sort of the use of that data. And so it's communicating out with the people who are responsible for our various plants in terms of what's happening and letting them sort of approve or disapprove of something happening. And then it's also working with our RPA solution to start actually then updating one of the systems that we can't integrate with Bizagi. It's going in and using the RPA to integrate in and sort of update some of the data in one of our other systems with the results of those calculations that are happening in the MDA. So we're using Bizagi as that sort of central orchestrator of all of this data and this process. It's quite an exciting project internally to see sort of all of these systems starting to integrate and work together.
That sounds like a really cool project. And it sounds like Bizagi's quite a good sort of linchpin in your tech stack. You seem to integrate with a lot of other systems.
And that's definitely one of the things that we're really hoping for, sort of bringing Bizagi in, is sort of having one of those sort of, as you said, that linchpin or that orchestration that can sort of help move our work around our systems.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Robin. It's been really interesting to hear more about the work that you and TransAlta have been doing, and hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Oh, I'm sure we can, Claire.
Thank you.
You're welcome.